Warhammer 40,000 Orc players rejoice. It has finally happened. Something is coming for you as far as greenskins, or I'm sorry, orcs go. Now, we don't really know what this means. If we're following like the blueprint of what's been happening so far with Psychic Awakening, I don't think it's really worth getting our hopes up in hoping that we'll get a whole new Warhammer 40,000 Orc plastic range, or at least just new Orc boys. If they just did that, that'd be so huge, because one of the biggest things about collecting Orcs in Warhammer 40,000 is you really don't need like a cogent box, or like a oh hey, here's all these brand new awesome models. You kit bash a ton of stuff. You modify things together. You throw a bunch of things onto a tank and call it Orky. I mean, that's kind of the best part about playing the greenskins in 40k, is that you can just kind of go hog wild. So we did get a little bit of a Psychic Awakening reveal here today, and it isn't much. It really is just kind of them going through the lore of orcs and leaders of Grand Wars throughout the many years. I mean, you talk about Urlach Urg's Wa, the big one that happened during the Horus Heresy. They kind of like a little, they painted this a little like, they kind of downplayed the Space Marines in this. They're saying Horus himself, it took Horus himself to bring down Urg, with the Luna Wolves Primarch battling the giant orc in his own throne room before casting the body down from the battlements. They kind of made it sound like this was a full 100% dedication of forces from the Imperium. While it was still a grand dedication, this was still when the Emperor was committed to the Great Crusade. You had the Luna Wolves involved in this. I think the White Scars were as well, but this wasn't all the Primarchs on one Wa. Had it been, it would have been like, oh, okay, well, let's just deal with that and move on. But we then move into the Wa Beast, which I would argue is a much bigger and much more vast Wa than that of the one that happened during the Great Crusade. And Wa Beast happens after the Horus Heresy, and only like scant years after. This is the situation that kind of sparks the Last Wall Protocol and being enacted by the Imperial Fist chapter, as they're relegated down to a single captain left in the entire chapter. And this is a pretty grand Wa against the Imperium, and so much so that it has an attack moon sprout out over Terra that assaults the Sol System. I mean, this is the second time the Sol System's ever been attacked, really. The first time being the Horus Heresy, second time being this. So, in fact, I think there's maybe even one more instance, aside from the Age of Apostasy, of the Sol System coming under any kind of direct aggression. So it's pretty interesting to note here that you have a Wa that is remarkably larger than the one in the Great Crusade, and a war boss that is significantly larger than Urlach Urg. And when you take a look at the kind of monstrosity-sized beast that is Beast, the war boss of Wa Beast, you have someone who goes toe-to-toe with the Primarch Salamanders. I'm sorry, the Primarch of the Salamanders, Vulcan, pretty well. So this is a pretty remarkable Wa. Then you jump into some of the more, I guess you could say, less remarkable Was throughout the remaining millennia up into the current 42nd millennium. And just so you guys know, it says here, Gork's Grin. That's the name for the Cicatrix Maledictum that spreads, the great rift that is spread throughout the entire galaxy right now. And we talk a little bit here, or they talk a little bit here, about some of the other big giant orc incursions across the Imperium, across the Tau Empire. I mean, orcs and Tau fight quite a bit. So this will be a very interesting Psychic Awakening to come. We don't know exactly who's coming, but we really have a really good idea here, because we see a little Grot Bro, and he is actually going to be the bannerman of gosh, what's his name? It's totally, I'm looking over here for it. I guess I didn't actually put it in the article itself, but Gaz Kull was the war boss that led a lot of the wars in Armageddon, the second and the third to be exact. And those two wars were significantly huge for Armageddon. And that was actually a big time in the hobby for greenskins. You had Gaz Kull come to the table, and Gaz Kull, at the time of his inception in 3rd or 4th edition Warhammer 40,000. I can't remember exactly which one. He was the strongest character next to Kharn the Betrayer. Kharn the Betrayer, points for points, pound for pound, was the strongest single character in the game. He could kill pretty much anyone and anything. With Ghazghkull, it was just like, it was pretty much down to the luck of the dice. So you have this pretty massive and strong character enter into the Orc roster with the Codex, and you have a revamp of a lot of units. A lot of the older Orc Killikans and Orc Dreadnoughts got revamps. Some of the boys got additional little models added to them, like with the flamers and shooters. And on top of that, I believe that's when they changed up the way that a lot of their bikes worked. But I can't remember 100% if it's right there or right after. But still, that marked a pretty pivotal point in the hobby for orcs. So this second coming of Ghazghkull might mark another big change to the tabletop for orcs as far as their kits go. And I think that'd be huge. If we take a look at some of the kits for Warhammer 40,000's greenskins and orcs, you can see kits that have been there since I was collecting them back in 3rd edition. And that's not a good thing. These are the same kits that have been there for over 10 years, 15 years even at this point. So if you consider that, the orcs, almost more so than any other race, needs an update to their skin or to their kits. When we take a look at the Eldar Guardians are some of the oldest models, but they work. They're really good. They're all modular. They're multi-kits. They work very well. That's not to say that the orcs are not a multi-kit box or kit. It's mainly that, or a multi-part kit. It's mainly that they're so old and hunched over, and their scale doesn't really fit to the larger, grander scale that has kind of inhabited Warhammer 40,000 in the last 3 or 4 years. So hopefully this really brings a revamp to the orcs in 40K. This is a kind of a cool little beginning. I honestly would argue that this grot is about the size of an orc boy. And it could just be the scale of this picture having blown up, and you can see him stepping on a Tempestus Scion helmet right here, which is really cool. But I think that it's worth noting that we really do need that revamp to scale for the orcs. They've had such a, I mean, when you take a look at them in these pictures, they're these big, burly, large green bastards. They're larger than Tau. They kind of go face to face with Space Marines as far as their overall broadness and scales go. So you need kind of something that matches that. The orcs of old matched the Space Marines of old, but now that we're dealing with Primaris, now that we're dealing with a whole new set of multi-part kits for 40K Chaos Space Marines, that kind of brings them in line with Primaris true to form scale. We need something that then matches. You can take a look at this picture here. You can see how much larger orcs are, or at least comparable in size orcs are to Space Marines. So Astaroth just ripping and gripping through stuff. So hopefully with this reveal, we'll get to hear more about what is coming with the greenskins. We did get a little bit of a lore download from them. Every time there's a new Psychic Awakening book, they release a corresponding little lore supplement, the Stand of the Saber here. And we know that this one's going to be called The Legacy of the Beast. And that really is going to hint, obviously, on some greenskins. We've already gotten Tau, so that kind of removes them from this. They're going to be in the Greater Good. And the big, I guess you could say, I don't want to say that it's speculated. It's just that it's like heavily hinted that it's going to be the Space Wolves that are going to be fighting against the greenskins in this supplement. So we'll see this here, probably some more news as this week progresses. I imagine we'll get some reveals in line with this. Reveals incoming, check back February 22nd at 10 a.m. Eastern for the latest news. It's the 2020 New York Toy Fair. Now, they don't really ever do a massive reveal during these toy fairs. It's usually like a more of a smaller scale one, because you're taking a look right now. We're going to be at the end of February by the time that happens, February 22nd. And we have Adepticon just around the corner. So they're going to want to save any big reveals for Adepticon. So in my mind, I think Adepticon is going to probably include the rumored 8.5 or 9th edition Warhammer 40,000 this summer. That's the big 40K rumor. And we'll probably get more Lumineth Realm Lords revealed at Adepticon, if not maybe their full roster or so on and so forth. The reveals for Toy Fair, I would imagine, will actually probably extend to their side games like Warcry, Necromunda, stuff like that. That's usually what they do, these kind of smaller conventions for is, okay, we'll use these to kind of, I think actually Toy Fairs, when they announced Aeronautica Imperialis, whatever, the pretty much the fighter mini game. So we'll see what kind of comes there. But really excited to see what's coming out in the coming week here. We should hopefully get another Lumineth lowdown this week to find out more information about the Lumineth Realm Lords. And again, we're going to hopefully hear more about the Greenskins before the end of this week. But as always, guys, thank you so much for tuning in here today. We'll have more 40K and Warhammer Fantasy as well as Age of Sigmar news as it comes out. But as always, have a good one and take care.